All rise.
Please be seated. Now I think we have Mr. Beecroft. Mr. Beecroft, would you just mind standing at the... could you give us your full name for the record?
It's Mark David Beecroft.
And do you wish to swear an oath or affirm?
I, Mark David Beecroft, sincerely declare and affirm the evidence that I give to this Commission shall be the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
Thank you, Mr. Beecroft. Please sit down. Let's see what...
Thank you. Mr Beecroft, you are the Director of Strategic Regulation at the Department of Local Government, Sport and Cultural Industries, is that correct?
Yes.
And you received a witness summons for this Royal Commission,
Yes.
and you prepared a witness statement for this Royal Commission. If you could have a look at the document in front of you, does that look like a copy of your witness statement that you prepared?
Yes.
Is it dated the 6th of May 2021?
Yes.
And is it 47 paragraphs
Yes.
and 17 pages? And is this statement true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, it is.
I tender the witness statement of Mr Beecroft, which has number DLG .0001, .0001, .0001.
The witness statement of Mark Beecroft, dated the 6th of May 2021, with the document identifier which Ms Seawood has just read out, will be admitted into evidence as an exhibit. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, Ms Nelson, you wish to cross-examine?
Yes, thank you, Commissioners. Could I have Mr Beecroft's statement, DLG 0001.001.001, but raise up the redacted version, so _R, thank you. And looking at paragraph 3, please, Mr Beecroft. If we could pop that out, thank you. In your witness statement at paragraph 3, you detail employment within various public sector roles since 2000.
Yes.
But essentially, would you agree that they're within the one regulatory area over the period of that time?
Yes.
And except for 18 months seconded to the Department of Treasury, which I believe was from February 2019 to June 2020, is that correct?
That's correct.
You held all those public sector roles in that period of time in a government department that was tasked with the regulation of liquor, waging and gaming, is that correct?
Correct.
So would you agree that the central theme of your professional experience over the last 20 years has been the general regulation of those three areas, liquor, gaming
Yes.
and waging?
Yep.
And over the course of those 20 years, have you gained an understanding or appreciation of casino gaming at the Burswood Casino?
I have gained an understanding through limited exposure. Predominantly I've been in the wagering and liquor space, but throughout the course of my tenure in these roles, I have undertaken some casino work. For example, when there's been an amendment to the agreement, to this casino agreement, I have assisted in progressing the amending bills through the Parliament to ratify those agreements. And I've also, on a couple of occasions, submitted papers to the Gaming and Wagering Commission on expanding products in the casino, for example, additional gaming machines and tables.
And would those reports have also included the authorisation of new games?
No.
No?
Sorry, I'll take that back. My recollection may have been in new products such as fully automated table game. So it's a combination of table games and EGMs together, so a new product, but not necessarily a new game as such.
And you say that you consider your predominant experience is in the waging sector, but have you had exposure to casino gaming matters over the course of the last 20 years, or only a portion of that time?
Just a portion of the time.
And what portion is that?
It's hard to say. In a quantitative period, most probably, 2 years worth, if that makes sense.
So your evidence is you've only been exposed to casino gaming in the last 2 years out of the whole 20-year period you've been in that area?
I have had an appreciation through doing the amending bills and, of course, doing the Gaming and Wagering Commission products. officers.
Thank you. And looking at your statement, your most recent substantive role was as the Director of Strategic Regulation, is that correct?
Correct.
And you've been in this role since August 2012,
Correct.
so over 7 years.
Yes.
And so that role you occupied predated the machinery government changes in 2017 that changed the nature of the department you now work for.
Yes.
So prior to the MOG changes in 2017, you're working for the Department of...
Racing, Gaming and Liquor.
Thank you. And how did the MOG amalgamation in 2017 affect your role as the Director of Strategic Regulation?
It had no direct impact in that case. I was still responsible for the legislative and policy work for the racing, gaming and liquor industries.
So you've had no involvement in the local government aspect of the wider department?
Sorry, I did do a very small stint as deputy member to the local government standards panel, but that was for a small period before I proceeded on secondment to Department of Treasury to do the participate in the TAB sale.
And was that small stint in addition to your ordinary role?
Yes, it was.
And if we go to paragraph 5, thank you, of the statement.
Mr. Beecroft, you've got a rather quiet voice. Would you mind speaking up?
Certainly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And at paragraph 5, you see that you've said, and I quote, that you are leading and developing a high-performing cohesive team which supported 6 statutory bodies, and you're also involved in implementing legislative and policy objectives to the racing, gaming and liquor industries in your role as the Director of Strategic Regulation. So how many direct reports did you have in your team?
So I have in my team a level 7 manager, a level 6 policy or senior policy and legislation officer, and I have 5 level 5 policy officers that are made of predominantly a couple of full-time employees and part-time employees.
How many of those are full-time employees?
3.
That's of the 5 level 5s?
Yes.
And the level 7 and the level 6 are full-time employees?
Yes.
And is that the full FTE complement of your team, or are there some roles that are currently unoccupied?
So that is the complement of my team. The level 6 position is actually a vacant position at the moment.
And what position is that?
The senior legislation and policy officer.
Now, apart from the Gaming and Wagering Commission, what other statutory bodies does your team support that you referred to in paragraph 5?
The Gaming Community Trust, the Problem Gambling Support Services Committee, which is a committee established under the auspices of the Gaming and Wagering Commission, the Liquor Commission, the Racing Penalties Appeal Tribunal, and the Local Government Standards Panel.
And you mentioned the Local Government Standards Panel. I think that was what you said you did the small stint in.
Yes.
Prior to going to Treasury.
Yes.
Are you on, or do you have a role as an officer of any of those other statutory bodies?
No.
Putting the GWC to one side?
No.
No.
The Problem Gambling Committee, is that how you described it?
Problem Gambling Support Services Committee? Yes.
That's not a statutory body?
No, it's a committee that's established under the auspices of the Gaming and Wagering Commission.
Right. And do you provide secretarial support?
My team does, yes.
And are you involved in that in the work of that committee? Do you attend meetings or anything of that nature?
No.
So it's someone within...
So the Act requires a member of the Commission to be a member of the committee. So
I thought we'd established that it wasn't a statutory committee. I thought you'd said it wasn't.
No, it's not a statutory committee,
No.
but under the establishment of a committee under the Gaming and Wagering Commission Act, a member of the commission is to be a member of the committee. So the deputy chair has been the chairman of the Problem Gambling Support Services Committee,
The deputy chair of what?
the Gaming and Wagering Commission.
And who is that at the moment?
That is Mick Connolly. There hasn't been another appointment of the deputy chair at this stage of the Gaming and Wagering Commission.
Sorry to interrupt, but it's just an area of the problem gambling, what support the department and GWC provide to in that area is something that the Commission may want to look at, and I just wanted to find out to what extent you knew about that issue, or those matters.
Yeah. So my team provides executive support and also provides the contract management of support services and assists in preparing papers, strategic plans for the Problem Gambling Support Services Committee.
And is there anyone in your section in particular who has knowledge and experience in respect of that committee?
I do, as oversight, but all my executive officers, or policy officers, sorry, actually contribute to the work of the Problem Gambling Support Services Committee.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
Thank you, Commissioner. And the Gaming Community Trust, who is on that committee or that board or body or?
Their appointments are made by the Minister. The names of those on that committee, on that trust, actually escape me at the moment.
And do you attend meetings for that trust? And your team provides executive support
Yes.
in the way of admin and secretarial services?
Yes, and contract management and preparation of assessment of applications and submissions to the trust.
And those three functions, are they performed by one person within your team or like the
No,
the
it's
committee?
spread across the team.
Spread across the team, so overseen by you?
Yes.
And the liquor committee, is it the same? I can't
The Liquor
remember
Commission?
name. Liquor Commission?
Yep.
Is that the same arrangement?
They provide essentially just executive support services to the Liquor Commission.
So your team doesn't provide any reports or papers?
No.
And who sets the agenda for the Gaming Community Trust?
The Gaming Community Trust meets on an ad hoc basis based on when applications are received, and my team will establish an agenda to forward to the chair, and then a meeting is called.
Does your team also establish the agenda for the Gaming and Wagering Commission?
It sets out the agenda, and that will be based on submissions lodged by the various areas in the Regulatory Services Division. So submissions may come from the Director of Licensing or the Director of Compliance. There will also be follow-up matters from previous Commission meetings that would then be presented onto agenda.
So the agenda is put together by your team for
Yes.
the Gaming and Wagering Commission and presented to the Commission.
So the agenda is first reviewed by the Deputy Director General of Regulation before it being finalised and then forwarded to the Commission.
So that would be reviewed by Mr Connolly?
Yes, yes.
And does the Chief Casino Officer have any role in setting the agenda for the Gaming and Wagering Commission? And just covering off on the same point for the Problem Gambling Committee, is the agenda set by your team?
Yes.
And who has input into that agenda?
Again, a lot of the agenda items will be in relation to contract management, awareness campaigns, and so my team will establish the agenda, and again, the Deputy Director General Regulation would review that agenda before it's finalised.
And do the members of that committee have any input into what goes on the agenda prior to finalisation by your team?
They haven't, but that's not to say that they can't.
And with the Gaming and Wagering Commission, have the members of that commission, do they have any input into the agenda items that is put together by your team?
They haven't in the past.
They haven't at all?
No.
You can't think of one instance?
No.
Thank you. We could go to paragraph 9, thank you. We're on paragraph 9. Okay, that can be taken down. If I could have a previous exhibit, which is the annual report of the Gaming and Wagering Commission from 2019, and that is PUB.0004.004.001. Would have pages 32 initially, please. Perhaps page 38. I'll go back to that in a moment. I was just looking for the organisation chart. Apart from the role that you've already described your team in performing, setting agendas, secretarial support, executive support, does your team provide any audit, inspection or compliance roles in relation to casino gaming?
No.
So their role in preparing reports then for the Gaming and Wagering Commission is limited to policy areas. And in terms of that policy work, how does your team organise their time between casino gaming policy and non-casino gaming policy, like community gaming work?
It's the highest priority, basically, gets the attention.
Thank you for finding that. Going back to that organisational chart, are you able to point out where your position appears?
Can I have it blown up a little bit? It's a bit buzzy, thank you.
So that's a chart of the whole
Yep.
department.
So on the left-hand side, the Regulatory Services Division, and I would fall under the Policy and Innovation.
But there's no local government policy included in your role,
No.
or sporting or cultural industries?
No.
Thank you, that can be taken down. I want to show you a document, and not for the detail in it, but just for the general purpose, and that is, I will refer to the extracted version of GWC.00007.0209. Have you seen that document before?
Yes, that's the activity document that is kept for the audit programs, I believe.
Did you have any role in preparing that document?
No, I didn't.
Do you know what the purpose of the document is?
It's to assist with audit frequencies.
And it has the second line down, casino. So is it only audit activities in relation to the casino?
That's right. There will be a further document in relation to the liquor and wagering industries as well.
And Commissioners, this is part of an Excel spreadsheet that has many tabs. This is the tab from 2017. Do you have any knowledge of what the what appear to me on the green portions to be initials? What's that referring to?
Yeah,
Or
those
just letters?
initials appear to be the initials of inspectors that have undertaken the relevant audits that are identified on the left-hand column.
And to your knowledge, if you don't know, please say so, is that the full extent of audits done on the casino? Is that every type of audit that was done in 2017?
I couldn't confirm that.
Do you know if the compliance model that's pictured here has changed in the period from 2017 to now?
I couldn't tell you.
Who could give us that information?
The Deputy Director General Regulation would be able to tell you that.
And who is that person currently?
Currently, it's the acting is Fiona Roche, but I would suggest that Mick Connolly would be able to talk to that model for you.
Right, thank you. That can be taken down. Did your team perform any role overseeing the casino gaming bank accounts that come across their desk at any time?
No.
And whose team was that?
That team was the director responsible for the compliance area, Mr. Minchin.
Mr. Minchin?
Yes.
Now, going back to the role that your team plays for the Gaming and Wagering Commission, which you said is executive, secretarial support, contract management, preparing papers and setting the agenda, was there any formal arrangement for your team members to provide that service to the Gaming and Wagering Commission?
No. It's just part of their job description forms.
So there wasn't a memorandum of understanding or any written form of agreement?
No.
And has that been the case for the entire period that you've been involved in that,
Yes.
overseeing that team? I've been asked to ask you to speak up, thank you.
Sorry.
Mr. Beecroft. And who did you report to in the role of Director of Strategic Regulation?
The director of, the Deputy Director of Regulation.
So Mr. Connolly?
Yes.
And is that for the entire period of the 7 years that you've been in that role?
Yes.
Could I have Mr. Could I have the statement, paragraph 9, DLG.000.001.001, paragraph 9, thank you. Now, the last sentence there, you say a key aspect of this function, meaning your function as Director Strategic Regulation, is providing advice to the Minister and key internal, external stakeholders. Have you provided advice on casino gaming to the Minister in the time you've occupied the position?
No.
Are you aware of who in the department actually provides that advice?
That would have been the Director General, so pre-MOG, that would have been Mr. Sargent. Post-MOG, that would have been Mr. Ord.
Right, if you could keep your
Yes,
voice
sorry,
up, thank you.
Mr. Ord and also Mr. Connolly.
And did you advise them so that they could perform that role? Did you provide them any written advice, or did they consult you?
I've provided briefing notes or prepared briefing notes.
Can you recall what topics those briefing notes were on?
Yes, of recent, a briefing note would have been in relation to the current acquisition that is occurring of Crown.
Any others that you can recall?
I can't recall, but I may have provided in the early days prepared the briefing note for the Director General in relation to the expansion of gaming products, you know, the increase of electronic gaming machines and table games as a result of the Gaming and Wagering Commission's outcomes.
And that's the increase of those machines and product on the floor of the casino?
Correct.
And who are the key internal and external stakeholders to whom you refer as providing advice in this paragraph?
Across all the industries, that would include the wagering industry, so Racing and Wagering Western Australia. In relation to the liquor industry, that would be Australian Hotels Association WA, Liquor Stores Association WA, local governments where necessary. I suppose in the casino, I really haven't liaised in that sense in providing information, but have had meetings and discussed matters with them in that sense.
With officers of the casino?
Yes.
And over what period of time have you done that?
That's been over the course of since 2012, but not frequently.
How many times a year?
Less than one.
And who at the casino would you generally be liaising with?
I would have liaised with Josh Preston or Claude Murray.
And did you go to those meetings by yourself?
Not always, no. I'd go with someone else.
Sorry, I presume they were meetings. Were they meetings or was it written correspondence?
They would have been meetings.
And who did you go with?
I can't recall exactly who I would have gone to those meetings because it's been a long time since I've been to those meetings. But I would have accompanied the Deputy Director General, definitely.
So it's not your practice to go alone?
No.
Thank you, that can be taken down. Now, in your role as the Director of Strategic Regulation, you've talked about overseeing your team contributing to the Gaming and Wagering Commission meeting agenda papers. Was that for the purpose of providing them recommendations on casino gaming?
Yes, it would have been.
And did you also author some papers yourself on casino gaming for the purposes of the Commission?
Yes, so as previously indicated, the expansion of gaming products, I think back in 2010, and I think I can't remember the second lot, but it might have been 2015, in relation to, again, the increase of electronic gaming machines and gaming tables.
And would your recommendation, especially in those two that you authored those papers, would it have been as a result of an application made by Crown Casino to your department?
Yeah, the genesis of those, particularly with the expansion of the gaming products, would have been as a result of an amendment to the casino agreement.
And who would have approached you to start that process?
The Director General.
And did you receive anything from Crown to assist you with those, authoring those papers?
Yes, I would have at the time. For example, I would have asked for a schedule of activity on gaming machines over a 2-week period, identifying play on machines to find the occupancy rates and when they were peak and non-peak times.
So the Deputy Director General, would he have given you an oral briefing about perhaps getting these papers together, or how did it normally come about?
Essentially, it'd be the Director General. So Mr. Sargent would ask me to prepare a document, identify some of the matters that would need to be covered, and I would go off research, put the paper together and have it submitted to the Commission.
And in that process you would consult with Crown to obtain information?
Information, yes.
What about if Crown wanted to apply for a certain game to be approved under the Casino Control Act? How would you receive that information?
That would come into the department or the Gaming and Wagering Commission. That would be assessed by our licensing area and also assessed by our compliance area. The game submission would then be submitted to the Gaming and Wagering Commission. If the Gaming and Wagering Commission endorses that, my team would then facilitate the necessary rules to have the game authorised and approved as an authorised casino game.
We'll come back to that process in a minute, but you said the submission would be received from Crown by the Commission, the GWC, or by the department. Could it happen either way?
Generally, I actually don't see them, but I think it's addressed to the chairman of the Gaming and Wagering Commission. It then comes into the department as the chairman of the Gaming and Wagering Commission, and then it's referred to an officer or the director of the department.
Turning to your most recent appointment as the Chief Casino Officer, prior to February 2021, did you ever act up as the Chief Casino Officer?
On 2 occasions, back in 2008, 2009 for a 3-week stint, and also after I returned from secondment from Treasury, I did, I think it's about a 3-week stint in July, August. They're the only 2 occasions prior to this appointment.
So that's July, August 2020?
Yes.
And on that occasion, were you also acting Deputy Director General as well as acting...
For that 3-week period, yes.
As well as the acting Chief Casino Officer?
That's right.
Do you recall during that period attending a GWC meeting of the 28th of July 2020?
Yes.
And what do you recall about that meeting?
That was the first meeting that I attended as Deputy Director General of Regulation. There's not a lot that I can actually recall back then.
Was that the first meeting you'd ever attended in any capacity?
No, I've been to meetings previously.
In your role as the Director of Strategic Regulation?
Yes.
If you were authoring a paper, would you generally attend
Yes.
the commission where that was being presented?
Yep, and then you could talk to the paper and receive and respond to questions from the commission members.
Thank you. Now, going back to the meeting of the 28th of July 2020, could I raise up the extracted version of GWC.0002.0016.0309. It'll be underscore E0001. So you can see this is the minutes of the meeting of the 28th of July 2020, and in attendance it has you as acting Deputy Director General.
Yes.
If we could scroll down, thank you. Is there another page, thank you? Thank you. So this is paragraph 5, and we're looking in particular at 5.1.9 in the last half of the page. Do you see there's a discussion regarding a 60 minutes investigation?
Yes.
Do you recall any discussion that was had around the table at the meeting about that?
My recollection was that the chairman provided basically an update, and there wasn't, from my recollection, any further discussion other than to note what the chairman had provided the commission members.
We'll just scroll up to the next, top of the next page, thank you. And at the top of that page, it was resolved after that discussion to note that the acting Deputy Director General's updates in relation to in the matters to be actioned. Is that in relation to the 60 minutes discussion?
The matters to action item would have been item 5.1. It would have had an agenda item would have had a list of matters that were to be referred back to the Commission at some stage, and that's what that update would have been referring to.
So in your recollection, it didn't refer in particular to the 60 minutes investigation?
No, it didn't.
Thank you, that can be taken down. Who appointed you to the position of Chief Casino Officer on the 12th of February 2021?
The Director General, Mr. Ord.
And what had occurred on that day to cause you to be appointed?
I had received a phone call from Mr. Ord requesting that I would take up the position as a result of Mr. Connolly stepping aside.
Were you told any more about why you had been chosen to be appointed?
No.
Sorry, was that a no?
Sorry, no.
And did Mr. Ord in that telephone call give you any instructions as to how you were to perform the role?
No.
And apart from telling you that you had been appointed, what else did he tell you during the course of that conversation?
My only recollection was the recent events, media events around Mr. Connolly, and as a result, he indicated that Mr. Connolly was stepping aside and he would like me to fulfil that role in the interim.
And the recent media events, are you referring to discussion in the media about Mr. Connolly having a fishing
Yes.
friendship with Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Had that knowledge, had that friendship been known to you prior to the 12th of February or prior to the media reports?
Yes, I was aware of that. It was also highlighted in the Gaming and Wagering Commission minutes back in October 2020.
Had you seen those minutes?
Yes, I have.
And was it the general practice for you in your role as Director of Strategic Regulation to see each set of minutes from the Gaming and Wagering Commission?
The minutes are available for my team, so I can actually access the minutes, and also to find out what matters to be action to be followed through with.
And prior to Mr. Connolly's friendship being mentioned in the October 2020 minutes, did you have knowledge prior to that of Mr. Connolly's friendship with Mr.
Yes,
Murray?
I was aware.
How long had you been aware of that?
For some time. I was aware that he had declared that to the previous Director General.
Did you have a discussion with Mr. Connolly about it?
No, I didn't.
Or how were you aware that he'd made that known to
I
the
was
previous?
I was aware through general discussion that he declared that, but I was aware of the friendship between Mr. Connolly and Mr. Murray.
And for what period of time? Are we talking weeks or months or years prior to October 2020?
At least a couple of years, yes.
And if someone had said that it was generally well known in the department, would you agree with that?
Yes, I think it would be generally well known.
And you said you had discussions about it.
My discussion was because I worked next door. My office was next to Mr. Connolly's office, so I was aware. And just in general discussion, that Mr. Connolly would indicate that he was going crow fishing early in the morning, and Mr. Murray was going to assist him with the pulling of the pots. So I was aware. It was just in general discussion.
So Mr. Connolly spoke about it quite openly.
Yes, absolutely.
Can you recall how many times he would have said he was going to go crayfishing?
I couldn't recall that, no, sorry.
And given that you'd known about the relationship for 2 years prior to 2020, is it the situation that Mr. Connolly was having those discussions about going fishing for the entire period of that 2 years, or would it have been even before that?
I can't recall whether it would be before that, but certainly during that 2 years, definitely, yes.
So it's your evidence that you knew of that friendship from at least late 2018?
Yes, yes.
Now, going back to your appointment as the Chief Casino Officer on the 12th of February, were you given any instructions from the Gaming and Wagering Commission as to how you were to perform that role?
No.
So is it the situation you were given no instructions from anyone?
No.
Did you ask for any assistance?
No, I didn't. I took it upon myself to have a review the Casino Control Act, the directions, and the casino employee licensing regulations to establish what powers exist in relation to the Chief Casino Officer, as well as establishing what the delegation was that had been issued to the position of Chief Casino Officer by the Gaming and Wagering Commission.
We'll come back to the delegation, but had you not done that exercise when you were acting up on the previous 2 occasions?
No.
And why was that?
It's generally the acting was, in a sense, a holding pattern. Basically, if anything was urgent that had to be done, that would be of a high priority, would be held over. It was really just to approve licensing and administrative type functions.
I'm sorry, Ms. Nelson. Just on that, you in the very first paragraph of your witness statement, you say, "I am temporarily filling the role." Was there any discussion about the temporary nature of the appointment when Mr. Ord phoned you, or in later discussions?
No.
Was it made clear to you that it was a temporary appointment?
No, it wasn't, but I raised the issue of workload with Mr. Ord, and Mr. Ord at that point, the Deputy Director General of Regulation, Ms. Fiona Roche, indicated to me that Mr. Ord would prefer that I stay in the role for at least the duration of while the Royal Commission was being undertaken.
Thank you. If we could go to paragraph 15 of the statement that's on the screen, thank you. So that's DLG.0001.001.001.
Mm-hmm.
You say, I'm far from being any form of expert on the role of the CCO. What expertise do you consider is desirable for someone who holds that role?
A far greater knowledge of casino regulation. Essentially the role is a licensing and administrative role from what I have gathered from my review of the legislation and the directions. So I think a greater understanding of those responsibilities would certainly assist.
Whilst you didn't consider yourself an expert, but do you consider that you had sufficient knowledge in or skills and experience in casino gaming to perform the role?
Yeah, I have a rudimentary knowledge to get me through, but I also rely on people in the positions that are putting submissions forward to me or applications forward to me for approval to be able to explain to me what they are for. So I have a better understanding as I go or undertake this role.
And are those people in other teams?
Yes, so essentially the Director of Licensing, I would ask questions of if a submission was put forward to me in relation for a casino employee no longer to wear an ID or be exempt from wearing an ID, I would ask the reasons why to get a better understanding, and actually question them and question whether the people that are being put forward as casino employees for exemption should actually be exempt from wearing the ID.
And that form of getting more information from them, was that just a conversation you'd have with
Yes.
the Director of Licensing, or
Yes.
an email or a memo?
No, just a conversation.
Mr. Beecroft, were you offered the role or were you directed to take it?
I was asked to take the role on.
So did you consider that you really didn't have any choice?
Correct.
Did you consult with anyone like Mr. Connolly about what was
No, I
expected
didn't.
from you of the role?
No, I didn't.
So your evidence is, apart from looking at the legislation yourself, you didn't seek out any other instruction,
No, I didn't.
either from the GWC or the Director General
No, I haven't.
or Mr. Connolly? No. If you could just
Sorry,
keep your voice
no,
up.
I haven't.
Are you friends with Mr. Connolly?
I've had a long-term working relationship with Mr. Connolly, which I would suggest would be a friendship, yes.
Do you socialise with him outside work?
No.
Have you asked the Director General to provide you any training to help you perform the role?
No, I haven't. Since taking on the role in February, it hasn't been a primary focus. I've been concentrating on my Director of Strategic Regulation role, as well as providing assistance to the department for providing assistance to the Royal Commission.
And you say in your statement that you asked the Director General to divest you
Yes.
of your substantive Director of Strategic Regulation role. When did you ask him to do that?
I asked that in early January. I actually asked if I could basically, because of my limited exposure of the Chief Casino Officer role, I asked to actually be relinquished of that. The preference was for me to continue in the Chief Casino Officer role, and my Director Strategic Regulation responsibilities would be divested to somebody else.
So you say you asked that of Mr. Ord in early January 2021.
Yeah, I did actually send that to the Deputy Director General of Regulation, Ms. Fiona Roche, who had a discussion with Mr. Ord.
But that was before you had the telephone conversation of the 12th of February.
No, that was after. So that was in early April that I raised that.
Oh, sorry,
Yes.
I misunderstood.
Yeah.
So between the 12th of February and early April, you did both roles?
Yes, in fact,
Chief Casino Officer and Director?
yes, and I didn't divest my responsibilities of the Director of Strategic Regulation until about the 27th of April.
So who is performing that role now, the Director of Strategic Regulation?
Ms. Emma Thomas.
So she was appointed from April, was she?
Yes.
And you say that you're focused on meeting the requirements of this Royal Commission.
Yes.
Was that in your role assisting the department meet the requirements of the Commission, or assist the Gaming and Waging Commission?
It's been both.
Both. And you've received instructions from both the department and the GWC to prepare responses?
Gather documents and prepare responses, yes.
And the responses prepared, does that include the Part 8A Statement of Information that both the department was asked to provide and the GWC were asked to provide?
Yes.
Both of those.
Yes.
If we could go to the statement at page 34, please. DLG.0001.001.001. Thank you. You referred to a current delegation of the 17th of June 2017. And where did you get the information about the current delegations for the Chief Casino Officer role?
My team is responsible for preparing the delegations. So we retain all the delegations, so I knew where to look to find the delegation for the Chief Casino
Is there a
Officer.
delegation register?
Yes,
And that's kept by your team?
yes.
By any one person in your team?
No, by the team. So at any one time, if someone had to prepare a delegation, they know where to go, know where to look, they know how to prepare one.
And this delegation, which you attach to your statement, it delegates to the Chief Casino Officer various powers under the Casino Control Act and the Gambling and Wagering Commission Act, doesn't it?
Yes.
Particularly in relation to authorising games.
Yes. I think if you're referring to the very first delegation about declaring games,
Yes.
That would be for the Chief Casino Officer to declare a game to be published in the Government Gazette. The actual approval of the game would still rest with the Gaming and Wagering Commission.
I see. If we could have an agenda memorandum of the 16th of February 2021, and I refer to GWC.00016.0349, but I raise the extracted version, which is _E0001. And you can see you're attending there in your role, your departmental role.
Yes.
If we just scroll down, there's an item there about delegations, item 3 on the agenda.
Yes.
If we could just keep scrolling, please, until we see the delegation. So you've signed, sorry, back to that page with the signature on it, thank you. Is that your signature?
Yes, it is.
On the 15th of February 2021, and
Yes.
Ms Howell has authored this paper. If you go back to the next page up, thank you. And given that you believe the delegation of the 17th of January 2017 was in place for the Chief Casino Officer, what was the purpose of requesting that the Commission delegate powers to the position of the Director of Strategic Regulation?
The purpose for that was that as a result of the Deputy Director Regulation coming in an acting capacity, and not being fully across the industries, it was there as a backup that should the Deputy Director not be available or not be prepared, that position of Director of Strategic Regulation could actually exercise the functions under the delegation.
Now, at this time, the 16th of February 2021, you were acting Chief Casino Officer, correct?
Yes.
But you were not acting Deputy Director General, were you?
No.
And so Mr Connolly was still in that role?
I can't recall. I can't recall the actual timing when Miss Roche took over, but it was thereabouts or just after.
And it says at the bottom half of the screen, that the current situation is that the Deputy Director General has delegation for all of the Commission's powers referred under those 4 acts.
Yes.
Was there any discussion about revoking that delegation?
No, there wasn't. But in hindsight, now that could be revoked, now that we have a Deputy Director General of Regulation in an acting capacity.
And did the Commission act on this recommendation?
It did, but As the Director of Strategic Regulation, I haven't exercised any powers under that delegation.
Because you're not actually in that role at the moment?
That's one of the reasons, but the other reason, there was no need for me to exercise any powers.
I thought Ms Howe was actually the Director of Strategic Regulation at the moment.
No, Ms Thomas is.
Ms Thomas.
Yes.
Has she exercised any delegated powers?
I don't believe so.
So is it the situation that as at the 16th of February 2021, and when the Commission acted on that recommendation, the Chief Casino Officer, who was you, had delegated powers?
Mm-hmm.
The Deputy Director General had delegated powers? And the Director of Strategic Regulation had delegated powers?
Correct.
And was there anyone else who had delegated powers?
There are delegated powers, not to that extent, in relation to the licensing matters that are issued to the Director of Licensing, and also there are delegated powers in relation to the Director responsible for compliance.
And who's the Director responsible for compliance?
Mr Mitchell.
Mr Minchin, right, thank you. When you were offered the Chief Casino Officer role on February 2021, was there any discussion about who would take the Deputy Chair of the GWC position?
No, not at that time. However, I had raised that with the current Acting Deputy Director of Regulation, and papers are being prepared to appoint Ms Roche as the Deputy Chair to the Gaming and Wagering Commission.
And that hasn't yet occurred?
No. We're in caretaker mode, so we didn't have a minister essentially to make that appointment. So
Mr Connolly still...
Technically, Mr Connolly would be...
Right. And when did you have that discussion with Ms Roche?
That would have been in April sometime.
Thank you, that can be taken down. And while we're on the subject of delegations, do you recall when you were a Principal Policy Officer in 2012, you authored a paper to the GWC advising them on a new commission procedure that involved a delegated power under Section 22 to authorise games, amongst other things, to the Chief Casino Officer?
I have a vague recollection of that.
It's Agenda Paper 2012, and I refer to GWC.00016.0016.0056, and the extracted version is underscore, raise the extracted version underscore E0001. I also have a hard copy for you, Mr Beecroft.
Thank you.
We go to the next page, thank you, of the agenda. Under Policy and Legislation, 8.2, New Commission Procedures - Casinos and RWWA Processes. And I've given you from page 349. We could go to the next page and the extracted version on the screen, thank you. Do you recall the paper, having looked at it?
Yes, the content not totally, but I do recall this was as a consequence of a restructure of the department at the time.
And what was that restructure about?
If I recall, we were bringing our liquor licensing and gambling licensing areas into one division, and our liquor and our gambling compliance areas into one division.
And that recommendation box that's on the screen, would you agree that it is asking the Commission to delegate to the Chief Casino Officer the ability to declare a game an authorised game,
Yes. Yes.
to amend rules of games, and to issue directions under Section 24 of the Casino Control Act,
Yes.
and to affix the Commission's seal to those instruments to give effect to those three different powers? That's what you're
Yes.
recommending, isn't it?
Yes.
And under the background heading, if you could just scroll up, thank you. You refer in the first sentence to the impending restructure of the department. And in the next sentence, you talk about the new structure, seeing the establishment of a strategic regulation division responsible for operational policy for liquor and gambling.
Yes.
And is it the situation that that was the division you then became head of as Director
That's right.
of Strategic Regulation?
Yes.
And going to the next paragraph, which starts the shift towards, looking at the last sentence that starts consequently, this will result in some cases in a change in the manner activities are undertaken, particularly in relation to submissions from the Burswood Entertainment Complex and to a lesser extent the Racing and Wagering Western Australia. So what was the change in manner, do you recall?
If my memory serves me correctly, a lot of all submissions from the casino would come into, I think, the Director of Compliance. What had changed was that would come into my position, basically for the division, the Strategic Regulation Division, to keep track of what was coming in as submissions, and then that would be sent out to the relevant director to progress.
And is that in fact what happened after this recommendation was accepted?
Yes, I believe so.
But in your earlier answers, you've said that submissions from the casino would come to the Gaming and Wagering Commission chair.
Yes, so I've noticed of recent times they all come into Mr. Ord as chairman of the Gaming and Wagering Commission.
How recently are we talking?
Since I've taken over the role of Chief Casino Officer.
Oh, I see. So prior to February 2021, the situation was as described, that you've just described, that it came in to the Director of Licensing.
No, I would imagine that since the machinery of government changes, that they've been addressed to Mr. Ord as chairman of the Gaming and Wagering Commission.
Okay, good. Might clarify that. If we just go to the next page, thank you. In the second sentence of the first paragraph, you're telling the GWC, the gambling division, which you will be overseeing as Director of Strategic Regulation. Is that correct?
No, that's not correct.
Okay. Who will be overseeing that?
So the gambling division, I'm just trying to think back because we've had subsequent restructures since this paper. So, and I'm just trying to recall the intent would have been for the subject matter experts to receive the submission and do the assessment, present it to the Gaming and Wagering Commission, and then once the Gaming and Wagering Commission have endorsed, agreed, approved, the outcome will then be referred to the Strategic Regulation Division to then facilitate the changes, whether it's to the rules of games, to the procedures, directions.
So your area would craft the direction? Or
Yes, in the early days, Parliamentary Council would actually craft the direction for us, but that's no longer the case.
When did that change?
I think it may have changed last year sometime.
And when you're referring to receiving submissions, do you mean submissions from Crown?
Correct. Yes.
We go to page 0353. So this diagram was attached to your report. So the first three boxes, submission lodged by licensee, so that's Crown.
Yes.
Proposal assessed. And if there are deficiencies, then the arrow back to Crown.
Yes.
So basically, those three boxes, do they represent a process whereby Crown puts in a submission? If the department officer doesn't think the submission's going to be accepted or thinks it needs changes, they go back to Crown.
Or no more information.
Or want more information.
Yep.
So the first three boxes illustrate a collaborative process between Crown and the department to get the submission into a state where it might be accepted. Is that fair?
I'm not sure we're a collaborative approach. It would be information gathering, or if there was a particular rule of a game that was being amended and we understood the intent, but it wasn't actually reflected that in the proposal from Crown, we would go back and seek clarification. And if that was the understanding, they would resubmit that amendment.
And you'd understand the intent, which might be different from the written submission because someone had had discussions with a Crown officer
yes.
or employee.
Potentially, yes, yeah.
And when you went back to Crown with a proposal to change it, would that be done orally or would it be documented somewhere?
It could have taken different forms. It could have taken a telephone call. It could have taken an email. It could have been in the form of a letter.
So it was quite an informal process then.
To be honest, I can't quite recall exactly, but I wouldn't have suggested it was informal. It was all part of the process of putting a submission together for the Gaming and Wagering Commission.
Was there a policy written down anywhere that went through how to put these submissions together?
No, not at that time. However, we do have procedures that have been, since these days, have been written in relation to the processes in processing game submissions or amendment directions or procedures, the operating procedures.
And that's internal departmental procedures?
That's, the Strategic Regulation Division or branch procedures.
And when were they put in place?
I think around about 2013, 14.
So is it the situation, looking at this chart, that before the GWC sees a submission, it's a possibility that it's already been back to Crown and been amended or...
Yeah, absolutely.
And when you put up a report or someone from the department puts up a recommendation report to amend or authorise a game, is the Crown submission, the original submission attached to that report for the Gaming and Wagering Commission? Yes. That's in all cases?
Yes, that's my understanding.
And is it your understanding that it's the original submission or a subsequent submission after there's been that collaborative process?
So the original submission, my understanding, the original submission will go with the agenda paper, and if there's any subsequent submissions lodged by Crown, that will also be attached. So the Commission is fully informed.
Thank you. If we could go to the next page, which is underscore 0354. So this is the proposed process that you're putting up to the Commission.
Mm-hmm.
And is it the intent of this new process that once the Commission receives the recommendation paper and the Crown submission, that if they indicate they want something changed, it is to go back to the departmental officer,
Yes.
and rather than then going back to the Commission for them to oversee any change, it is the delegation is then utilised. Is that what you're proposing?
That would have been reasonable. Yep, that would be reasonable. If the Commission had approved it in principle, then yes. If the Commission hadn't approved it in principle, it would go back to the Gaming and Wagering Commission.
So if the Commission had approved it in principle, why would it not just be approved at that particular Commission meeting and pass on to the your area where the directions were drawn?
They may have put some conditions around what they may have wanted, and then those conditions would have to be fulfilled before the delegation would have been exercised.
So on this proposed process, if the Commission had put conditions on the approval, they would not see the final product with those conditions presumably fulfilled before it was authorised as a game or amended?
No, they wouldn't, but there is an agenda item for exercising delegations that would be put to the Commission, indicating that on X date, Chief Casino Officer exercised the delegations to do Y.
So the Commission would be told after the event?
Yes.
Could go back to page 0350.
Sorry, just before we do that, could I ask a question? So was your evidence that ultimately what went to the GWC was any initial submission or even an amended, together with any amendments, and the final submission?
The Commission would receive the original submission, any amended submission, and then an assessment undertaken by the relevant area of the department, and that would then provide a recommendation, and the Commission could accept that recommendation or accept it in principle with conditions.
I just want to focus on what the GWC received, because looking at this document, that's not what this document says, is it? It refers to a submission that's lodged, and then it refers to a full submission being received and the full submission being submitted to the GWC. Doesn't refer to any initial submission being provided to the GWC.
It's the full submission. You're correct. It's it'll be the full submission.
So what's your evidence in regards to what goes to the GWC, or don't you know?
I'm not totally clear in that sense because I haven't been involved in that particular process now for some time, since 2012.
Thank you, Ms Nelson.
Thank you, Commissioner. Well, you were the author of this report, and looking now at attachment 2, do you agree that the proposal was for the GWC just to receive the full submission as it was in its final form rather than the original submission from Crown if there was?
Just following the flow chart. So if they accepted the full submission, it was supported, it would come to the Strategic Regulation Division to progress the instruments. If it wasn't supported, it would go back to have those deficiencies rectified, and then it'd be resubmitted to the Commission. That was the intention of this flow chart.
were recommendations ever put up to the Commission with a Crown submission attached recommending that the Commission not accept the Crown submission?
With respect, I'm not sure the witness can answer those questions. He's indicated he hasn't been involved in this since 2012.
You can ask if he has any recollection.
Thank you, Commissioner. Given you're the author of this report, in 2012,
Yep.
I'm asking your recollection of the position. Do you accept that you must have had some knowledge at that time to write this paper?
Yes.
So in 2012, was it, in your knowledge, did the department ever put up a recommendation paper recommending the Commission not accept a Crown submission?
I can't recall.
I've nearly finished this point, Commissioners. We could just go back to 0350. And I want to just focus on the middle paragraph that starts, the Commission will continue to receive submissions and have the opportunity to comment on the suitability. However, the delegation would not be exercised by the Chief Casino Officer until the Commission had given its support to the submission. Under this process, once the Commission is satisfied with the proposal, it's referred to the Strategic Regulation Division to prepare the necessary instruments for execution by the Chief Casino Officer. So are you recommending to the Commission that the intent of this change is a conditional delegation in effect, that the delegation will only be exercised when the Commission has prior knowledge of a particular submission and has asked for some change or some conditions put on it?
The intent of that is that once the Commission has supported the submission, my team would prepare the necessary instruments that would then allow. So, for example, if the Commission approved a new game, the Strategic Regulation Division would prepare the instruments to allow that game to be declared as an authorised game by the Chief Casino Officer to allow it to be gazetted in the Government Gazette.
Well, putting it another way, was it the intent of this proposal that the delegation to the Chief Casino Officer would not be exercised unless the Commission knew about it first?
Correct.
Okay, if we could go to page 0355, thank you. And this is the draft instrument of delegation that is attached to your recommendation report. Just looking at paragraph 1, which deals with the delegation to declare a game an authorised game.
Mm-hmm.
Do you accept that on the plain reading of those words, there's no qualification to that delegation, that the Chief Casino Officer can exercise it without first telling the Commission that he's going to do so?
I'd accept that.
Is that a convenient time, Commissioner?
Yes, thank you.
Sorry, could I just, whilst we're on this document, ask another question about the diagram? If we could go back to that and just have a look at the initial process.
Mm-hmm.
Ms. Nelson asked you about the intention of the process as a whole. What's your understanding? You put up the document. What was the intention in relation to that initial discussion, contact, collaboration, whatever you want to call it, over the submission, over the form of the submission before it went to the GWC? Why was that process whereby it could be sent back to the Commission, to Crown? Why do that?
My understanding would have been only to iron out any issues with the submission, as indicated with, if it was a amendment to the rules of an authorised game. There may be issues with the way the rule is worded. There might be issues with the Commission may not be happy with the way the game might be played. It would then go back for clarification.
Yes,
or
but this was before it ever went to the Commission, so you
Yeah,
don't know what
sorry,
the Commission thinks of it.
Yeah, sorry, but it's, I suppose, what I'm saying is the person assessing, the subject matter expert, looking at it, assessing it, and then going back and getting that clarification in order for the submission basically to go to the Commission to provide them with a full and complete submission for them to make that assessment.
Was one of the purposes of it was to get the submission into a form in which the department could support it when it went to the GWC?
Yes, that could be correct.
That was all I wanted to ask, thank you.
And Mr Beecroft, in paragraph 14 of your statement, you refer to a document. Would you mind over the break just refreshing your memory of that document? I want to ask you one very simple question about that document in paragraph 14.
Yep.
We'll resume at 11:35. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Beecroft. Just before I call on you, Ms. Seawood, we don't want to take up time this morning, but at the Problem Gambling Support Committee, could we be given a name from someone? Could the department nominate someone to whom we can speak who has full knowledge of the structure and activities of that committee?
Yes.
Thank you.
Arrange that.
Yes, Ms. Nelson.
Thank you, Commissioners. Commissioner referred you to paragraph 14 of your statement before the break. And in particular, an annexure table that was the document that you created. And if we could have the annexure table up, which is DLG.0001.001.004. And that's the responsibilities of the Chief Casino Officer as you understood them at the time you took on the role in February 2021. Is that correct?
Yes.
Did you consider, did you read the Casino Control Act to compile this list?
I didn't actually read it from cover to cover. I essentially looked for those aspects where the Chief Casino Officer is mentioned and extracted that out to have as a pointer. I haven't yet gone back and read the full relevant sections. As I said, these are to give me as a pointer.
Did you consider that you were, under that Act, an officer of the Gaming and Wagering Commission, especially under Section 9 of that Act?
I wasn't aware as an officer of the... Sorry, can you repeat that question again?
In Section 9, one reading of Section 9 of the Casino Control Act is that as Chief Casino Officer, you are in fact an officer of the Gaming and Wagering Commission.
Yeah.
That is one reading of that, that section. You didn't consider that?
Yeah, I considered it was an appointment by the department under the Casino Control Act rather than the Gaming and Wagering Commission Act. But yeah, I agree with what you're saying.
So you considered that you were appointed by the department, you said?
Yes, by the Director General as the Chief Casino Officer.
You didn't feel that the Gaming and Wagering Commission had any input or say, or it was necessary for them to approve that appointment in any sense?
I wasn't aware of that, but the Chairman of the Gaming and Wagering Commission did put my appointment to the Gaming and Wagering Commission at its, I think, 16th of February meeting, and the Commission endorsed that appointment subject to me providing a declaration of no conflicts, which I did subsequently do with the Chair or the Director General, who then referred that back to the Gaming and Wagering Commission at its meeting of 23rd of February.
So at the meeting at the 16th of February with the Gaming and Wagering Commission, you had already, in your mind, been appointed 4 days earlier on the 12th of February, is that correct?
Yes.
So in your mind, the Gaming and Wagering Commission were just merely supporting that appointment made earlier, is that?
Subject that there be no conflicts of interest.
So did you consider that you, as an officer of the Commission under the Act, you might have had extra powers that are not in your table, such as to look at the books of account or to enter without warrant any part of the casino? You didn't...
Under the Gaming and Wagering Commission Act? Or
no, under the Casino Control Act.
No, I wasn't aware of that at the time.
That can be taken down, thank you. Going to budgeting and accounting now, have you ever been involved in setting the budget, well, for the next financial year specifically for the Gaming and Wagering Commission, considering that you're now Chief Casino Officer?
No.
Who does that process?
The Finance Department of the department.
And do they do that in consultation with members of the commission?
All I'm aware of is that they will present a paper to the Commission with a budget proposal, and then that's either endorsed or not endorsed by the Commission.
And have you seen any of those budget proposals previously?
I have seen.
Are you able to say how costs or expenses allocated to the Gaming and Wagering Commission are done during that budget process?
No, I can't.
Is it correct that the Gaming and Wagering Commission doesn't have its own salary spend?
That's correct.
Are you aware of whether Commission members are involved in any discussion about the apportionment of departmental FTE to casino gaming as opposed to community gaming or wagering? Not aware
No.
of them having any involvement?
No.
I want to take you to another agenda paper which was authored by yourself, and it's dated the 26th of May 2020. And I raise a redacted or an extract version, GWC.0002.0300_E0001. The 26th of May 2020. And if we could just scroll down, thank you, to page 0038. Do you recall authoring this paper?
Yes, I do.
And what was this paper about?
This was in relation to COVID-19, where the Minister, I'm not quite sure how the Minister had been, Minister's views were sought, but to potentially have a reduction in the annual casino licence fee. So the purpose of the paper was the exercise was to see if there was actually a power to be able to do that. And advice was sought from State Solicitor's Office, which ultimately said, no, you can't.
You don't need to go into the
Yep.
advice.
Yep.
But I just ask you this, under whose direction or request did you author this paper?
I can't recall.
Well, it's not something you would have come up with
No, definitely
by
not.
yourself?
No, definitely not.
Would you have received a submission from Crown?
No. I wouldn't have personally received the submission from Crown. So I'm just trying to recall the events, whether that was through a meeting with the Minister's Office to explore that option, as we would meet with the Minister's Office on a fortnightly basis, particularly the Director General and the Deputy Director General. And that could have emanated from that a particular meeting at that time.
But in any event, the request for this paper would have come to you from someone within the department,
Yes,
not
absolutely.
someone from the Commission.
No, from within the department.
And incidentally, wasn't this during the time you were seconded to
Yes,
Treasury?
it was.
So you were still performing some of your substantive role?
Provided that service, yes. Whilst on secondment to Treasury, I was actually still located within the department.
And just generally thinking about all these types of recommendation papers that you put up to the GWC, would you say in all cases you were asked to do that by someone within the department?
Yes.
And I'll leave it there. Who did you report to as your Director of Strategic Regulation position?
To the Deputy Director General Regulation.
So is it fair to say you would have received a request for a paper such as this from either the Deputy Director General or the Director General, or could it have
Could
come
be
from,
reasonable.
could it have come from elsewhere within the department?
Nowhere else in the department, no.
You can say that categorically?
Yep. Yes.
And that's over the whole 7-year period that you occupied that role as Director of
Yeah,
Strategic
I would only have
Regulation?
take instruction from either Deputy Director General Regulation or the or the Director General.
Okay, thank you. Now, this paper refers to an annual licence fee for 2020 that Crown were required to pay to the state of 2.98 million. You agree with that?
To the Gaming and Wagering Commission, the licence fee.
We'll just scroll down so we can see the whole front page, thank you. In the second last paragraph, you say that the annual licence fee is payable on a quarterly basis.
Yes.
And the last sentence of that paragraph, the annual licence fee is payable to and retained by the Gaming and Wagering Commission and does not form part of the consolidated fund. Where did you obtain that knowledge from?
So that was from the casino agreement, and that's my knowledge from over the years from working within the regulatory division, that it is actually retained by the Gaming and Wagering Commission and not retained by the consolidated fund.
So had you looked at the state agreement with Crown, with Burswood, for you to be able to author this paper, had you?
Yes, I had a look at, as indicated in there, that the subsections or subclauses of the agreement.
And is it fair to say that the nub of this recommendation is that COVID had happened, the casino had to shut for a period, and that you were recommending that some of the licence fee be paid back, but there wasn't a mechanism under the state agreement for that to happen?
Yes.
And it would have to be an ex gratia payment.
Correct.
What was the reaction of the Gaming and Wagering Commission members to your proposal?
I think I can't recall. I was not in attendance at the meeting. My understanding is it was supported to go to the minister, but the minister determined not to allow an ex gratia payment on the basis of his portfolio responsibilities as well to small business.
If you could just keep your voice
Yep,
up,
sorry.
thank you.
Yep.
So the minister elected not to pay it
Progress
because
it to
of
cabinet.
his
Yep.
portfolio responsibilities
Yes.
elsewhere. Who told you that information?
The minister's office.
And if we could go to the first page of this document, please. We can see who's in attendance at the meeting at the top half of the page. Who would have spoken to your paper if you were not in attendance?
The Deputy Director General.
Thank you, that can be taken down. I just want to ask you some general questions about the Commission's approach to managing the resources that were made available to them by the department. To your knowledge, did they have any role in apportioning any of those resources? Did they have any say? Did they direct the department as to how the resources would be applied to their functions?
No.
And are you talking from a knowledge that you've gained since February 2012 or from your
No,
previous experience?
From my previous experience, I'm not aware of any discussions or along those lines.
Are you aware of whether the Gaming and Wagering Commission required the department to meet any particular targets when it came to the casino gaming regulation function?
I'm aware that there is targets that they have to meet in relation to KPIs.
And who sets those KPIs?
That's set by the, a paper is submitted by the director responsible for the compliance area and submitted to the Commission for endorsement.
Could I have document CRW.700.001.0250 and the extract version, please, which is _E0001. Now we're looking at minutes of a meeting held the 7th of August 2020. And the meeting is DLGSCI Operations Division meeting. What is the purpose of that meeting?
My understanding of the purpose of that meeting is it's a Crown facilitated meeting to share information in relation to potential submissions that they may be putting forward in the future, to discuss those, and also to have the outcomes of Gaming Wagering Commission resolutions relevant to Crown communicated to them.
And is that your understanding because you attend those meetings?
I don't attend those meetings.
I can see that you're an apology there.
Yeah, and that was as a result I was acting as Deputy Director General Regulation at the time. That was the only reason I had been invited to attend the meeting.
And the minutes are on Crown letterhead, and it indicates that Mr. Murray is the chair of the meeting. You just nodded then? Can you?
I was agreeing with you in the respect of it's saying Chairperson Mr. Murray.
Did you usually see the minutes of these meetings after they were held?
No.
Were the outcomes of the meetings reported back to you by anyone?
No. I can clarify that it has me as apologies as Acting Deputy Director General, but I would imagine that would have also been as Chief Casino Officer as well.
See, how long had these meetings been happening between Crown and the department?
I can't tell.
You don't know?
I don't know.
Thank you, that can be taken down. Were you aware of which patrons brought the most revenue to Perth Casino?
No.
On the 25th of August 2015, the Commission approved the removal of a dedicated inspector presence on the casino gaming floor. And this was recommended by Mr. Connolly in his role then as the Chief Casino Officer. Do you recall that change in policy?
I recall the change in policy, but I don't have any knowledge or involvement, or had no involvement in that.
Even though it was a policy area?
Yes, yeah, it was operational.
Were you made aware of the reason behind that change?
No.
Did it have any impact on your team operation?
No.
And turning now to junket regulation, over the time you were employed by the department, were you aware of any change in the approach by the department to regulating junket operators?
Yes. back in 2010, the junket approval processes contained in the casino control regulations were repealed, and my team was responsible for facilitating the repeal of those regulations.
So what can you tell the commissioners about the reason for the repeal of those?
The Commission, or Gaming and Wagering Commission, agreed on the basis of a paper presented to it back in 2010, I think by Mr. Toyne, that recommended the removal on the basis that there was a duplication of processes. So the federal authorities were already approving and issuing visas for people to come into Australia. Therefore, there was no requirement for the Gaming and Wagering Commission to continue with that process, and also on the basis that it was an economic decision that the approval process was affecting Crown's ability to attract junket operators on the basis that it had an approval process where other jurisdictions may not have had an approval process.
Sorry, I didn't hear that last bit. On the basis that
On-
other jurisdictions had.
Did not have an approval process in place, and therefore it was easier for them to go to that jurisdiction rather than Western Australia.
Thank you.
And that would have been information that came from Crown to whom?
I understand that would have come from Crown to the Gaming and Wagering Commission, the department. I'm not quite sure how it came, but I understand that Mr. Toyne put a paper together in relation to that particular matter.
And did you say that members of your team helped Mr. Toyne do that?
No. Once the Commissioner endorsed the removal or the repeal of those provisions, my team then facilitated that process through the repeal of those regulations.
And what was the practical effect in the department from the repeal of those regulations?
I can't tell you. I can't answer that question. I can't recall.
And were you aware of subsequent changes in policy to regulating junkets after those repeals, the repeal of those regulations?
Can you please explain a little bit
So
further on?
April 2017?
Yeah.
You're not aware of any, there's no longer a requirement to give advance notice
No, I
of
wasn't aware.
junkets?
I wasn't aware of that. That would appear to be operational.
Are you aware of what the junket regulation process, if any, that was in place between 2017 and 2019?
No, I don't.
You're not aware of any?
No.
Are you aware of whether the department considered junkets a regulatory risk in any sense? Was that ever a discussion that was had?
It's not a discussion I was part of. No.
At the second meeting after your appointment as the Chief Casino Officer, so the first meeting that you attended was the 16th of February 2021, and then there was a subsequent meeting soon after on the 23rd of February 2021. Do you recall that?
Yes, I do.
And at that time, the Commission were advised in writing by a Senior Legislation and Strategy Officer in relation to prohibiting junkets.
Mm-hmm.
Do you recall that?
Yes, I do.
If we go to that agenda paper, thank you. It is DLG.0001.001.005 And we raise the extractor version at 0001. Is Miss Pemberton, who's the author of this paper of the 22nd of February 2021, was she a member of your team when you were
Yes.
Director of Strategic Regulation?
Yes.
And on the last page of this extract, sorry, if we could go back to the first page, did you sign this?
I believe I did sign that.
Though we don't have a signed copy on the screen. If we could go back to page 1, thank you. Now, you attended the meeting as the Chief Casino Officer in which the Commission would have reviewed or discussed this paper. Do you recall what the discussion was?
Not extensively. I basically recall the Commission agreeing to the recommendation. Originally, if I go back to the meeting of the 16th of February, if my recollection is correct, we were looking at prohibiting junkets originally, and there was input in relation to including premium and privileged players. So that was expanded to include those two other category of players or activity.
And why was that?
That was at the request of a member of the WA Police who was in attendance at the Commission meeting, just to round off international Commission players, I can put it that way.
Was there any discussion as to why the direction power was used rather than asking for regulations to be made?
I would believe that the reason being is a direction can be issued far quicker than a regulation.
So there was some need for haste?
Yes, so my understanding is that back in December when Crown had announced that it was no longer participating in junket activity, the Commission determined to formalise that and by issuing a direction formalised that particular prohibition on them being able to participate in any further junket activity or premium or privileged player activity.
And apart from Crown saying it wasn't going to participate in junkets, why were the Commission keen to act quickly, given that there had previously been some relaxation in the years prior in relation to regulation of junkets?
I can't answer that, unfortunately. I wasn't present at the meeting of December where they made that decision.
Thank you, that can be taken down. Now, in your statement, you've said that one of your actions as the Chief Casino Officer was to use your word, refine the Gaming and Wagering Commission Code of Conduct on Conflicts of Interest, and that's at your statement, paragraph 46. Which is DLG.0001.001.001 underscore 0016. Paragraph 46, thank you. How did you refine the Code of Conduct?
Essentially, as indicated in my statement there, that any conflicts of interest in the previously were actually just recorded in the minutes. So it was very difficult to trawl back through the minutes to find previous conflicts of interest that had been declared. So the Code of Conduct for the Gaming and Wagering Commission was amended to establish a register and require members to fill in a form, have that signed by the chairman, and that document also be recorded in register, and that register to also be available at every Gaming and Wagering Commission meeting.
And who would keep the register?
The register is kept in a secure department electronic file, access is only available to my team.
So it's your team's role to
Retain as
maintain.
part of the executive office support to the Commission.
And had there always been in place a departmental conflict of interest policy, to your
Yes,
knowledge?
to my knowledge, yes.
Would you describe, or would you agree with the statement that casino gaming regulation carries with it inherent conflicts of interest that are unavoidable?
Yes,
You would agree with
I
that?
would agree, yes.
Can you explain why you would agree with that statement?
You could have any sort of conflict arise because the casino is a large employer. You could potentially have family or friends working at the casino. That's a primary one that comes to mind for me.
Do you have any family or friends working at the casino?
No, I do not.
Did any members of your team, when you were Director of Strategic Regulation?
I do not believe so.
Do you consider there's any conflict with you co-signing or authorising papers like the one we just saw from Miss Pemberton that asked the Commission to consider banning or providing directions to ban junkets? Do you think there's any conflict with you co-signing and authorising those papers effectively with a departmental hat on as her line manager, while at the same time being the Chief Casino Officer?
No, I don't. I don't. It's the Chief Casino Officer role is, from what I have gathered so far, is licensing and administrative function. My view is this is a more policy-related matter and fits within my scope of Director of Strategic Regulation.
But would you agree that you're effectively wearing two hats at the same time? You're wearing the hat of the advisor to the Commission as a departmental employee, as well as wearing the hat of the Chief Casino Officer being an officer of the Commission.
I'd agree with that, yes, wearing two hats, yeah.
You don't perceive any tension there?
I haven't experienced it yet, but I don't perceive any tension there either.
That statement, paragraph 46, can be taken down, thank you. Are you aware of media reports that there are some parties that are interested in acquiring interests in Crown Resorts?
Yes.
And have you, as an officer of the GWC, commenced any due diligence processes for vetting as close associates?
I have been involved in a small capacity at the moment in relation to one of the applicants. That process is being done as a multi-jurisdictional approach where New South Wales, Victoria and us, Western Australia, are participating in a probity assessment, and that is being led by New South Wales.
And prior to that happening as a multi-jurisdictional approach, has it been the practice to approach regulation of casino gaming in a multi-jurisdictional way?
I can't comment on that.
It hasn't
I'm
been
not
your
sure.
experience?
It hasn't been my... sorry, in saying it hasn't been my experience, I haven't been involved in it. It may have occurred, but I personally haven't been involved in it.
Have you attended any conferences on casino gaming regulation in the time you've been in the department?
There was the Australian Casino Gaming and Gaming Regulators Forum. That's been going for a number of years, and I've attended those when they've been in Western Australia, although I didn't attend the last one.
And how often are those forums held?
Generally every 12 months.
And who would normally go to that from the department?
Generally it would be the Deputy Director General Regulation and or the DG.
And
Director General, sorry.
would any members of the GWC attend those forums?
I can't recall of any of recent time, but I do recall many years ago a member attending one of the forums, and I think it may have been in Melbourne at the time. It was many years ago, pre-2000, I think.
Thank you. During the same GWC meeting on the 23rd of February 2021, when the Commission authorised the issuing of directions in relation to prohibiting junket activity, they also approved 2 particular bank accounts for Crown Casino Perth gaming operations, and you informed Crown of that same day, so on the 23rd of February 2021. After that meeting, a few days after, in fact the 12th of April 2021, you were sent a response that Mr Connolly had made to the New South Wales Bergen Casino inquiry. And I'll bring that up on the screen, thank you. GWC.00001.007.0390. And we're looking in particular at the first big paragraph, which starts direction 5.1, requires the casino operator to open and operate a bank account exclusively for gaming operations. And the balance of that paragraph in effect says that the Commission is aware other accounts have been opened, used for purposes related to gaming without formal written approval. Now, prior to receiving this email, which you can see from the top is on the 12th of April 2021, were you aware that there had been gaming accounts used by Crown that had not been authorised?
With respect, the sentence doesn't actually say gaming accounts. It says accounts opened for purposes relating to gaming.
Stand corrected, thank you. If I ask the question again, so prior to the 12th of April 2021, were you aware that there were accounts that had been opened by Crown and had been used for purposes related to gaming that hadn't gone through a formal written approval process?
As part of a summons to the Bergen inquiry, we were required to provide details of all bank accounts, revenue statements, the like.
Sorry, can I just stop you there? When you say we, who are you referring to?
The department, sorry.
In particular, who in the department?
Well, the summons was issued to, I think, the Director General. I can't recall if it was the Director General or the Deputy Director General.
But who actioned the
So the Deputy Director General actioned it, and I assisted, and it was at that point, and sorry, the summons was required to be lodged, the details, by the 15th of December, if I recall correctly. And it was through that process that I became aware of such accounts.
And when approximately did that occur, that you became aware through that process?
That would have been around 13th, 14th of December of 2020. Yes.
Were you aware of whether the GWC were informed in mid-December 2020 of this fact?
I'm not aware.
You didn't inform them?
No, I didn't.
And after receiving this email on the 12th of April 2021, did you do anything to inform the GWC of this fact?
No, I haven't.
Why did you receive this email at that point?
I received that as part of the notice to produce documents for the Royal Commission.
I see. Are you aware of whether the accounts that Mr Connolly is referring to in this email are the 2 accounts that had been approved by the GWC on the 23rd of February 2021?
And no, I'm not aware.
You didn't make any inquiries about that?
No, I didn't.
Could I please have agenda? Oh, I'll have that taken down, thank you. First of all, did you attend a meeting on the 15th of December 2020 of the GWC where Crown attended to discuss any reforms?
No, I did not.
Now, you did attend a meeting of the GWC on the 16th of February 2021, which is the meeting where we've discussed earlier today, where they supported your appointment. The following day, the GWC issued a media release. Do you recall that?
Yes, I do.
Did you have any hand in drafting that media release?
Yes, I did.
Were you the one that drafted the whole thing?
No, I was not.
Who assisted you?
Well, I actually, it was drafted between the chairman of the Gaming and Wagering Commission, the director of communications, the deputy director general regulation, and I provided some small input.
So just keep your voice up.
Yep, sorry.
I'll show you that media release.
Mm-hmm.
It's GWC.0002.0016.0348. We'll go to the next page, thank you. Yes, thank you. That page. Under the heading Comments related to the operation of junkets at Crown Perth, the second paragraph says the last junket from mainland China to Crown Perth was in November 2016, the last from Hong Kong was August 2019, and the last from Macau was March 2020. Thank you. Where did that information come from?
That information came from Crown.
And who particularly from Crown?
Mr. Murray.
I have no further questions. Thank you, Commissioners, but I have neglected to tender any documents, so I do have a long list of numbers.
I wonder if it's acceptable to the parties if a list could be prepared and the direction be given that it be included in its entirety in the transcript. It might save us some time.
That's acceptable from my perspective. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Certainly.
Mr. Malone?
Thank you.
Right, thank you. Mr. Dharmananda?
No, nothing from us. Thank you.
Mr. Evans?
I'd like take Mr. Beecroft back to the flow chart, which was put up. Okay. Mr. Beecroft, you recall giving some evidence about your involvement in April 2012 in changing the process for the supply of materials to the Gaming and Wagering Commission?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Is it fair to put it to you that that was an exercise in streamlining the process by which the Gaming and Wagering Commission considered applications which were before it?
Yes, that would be fair.
And I ask you to comment to see whether you recall this. Did you have in mind at the time you prepared that paper that the Gaming and Wagering Commission met only monthly?
Yes.
That it meets only for a relatively finite amount of time?
Yes.
that it has a considerable amount of business in front of it at that time,
Yes.
and that the process which had been in place hitherto involved, in a sense, a complete package of material, including drafted changes for approval by the Commission in that session in the papers?
I can't recall, but it would be not unreasonable to assume that.
I think you commented at that time the Parliamentary Counsel's Office was involved in drafting changes.
They were involved in drafting changes to the directions.
To the directions, yes.
Yes.
And a number of these would involve changes in the directions, potentially.
Potentially, yes.
So there was considerable potential to waste time of both departmental staff and Commission staff
Yes.
if the Commission determined that there was some small error in the material before it
Correct.
and sent it back,
Yes.
so that it would have to be considered at another meeting a month hence.
That's correct.
And was that the predominant consideration in this process in your mind?
It would have been number of considerations along those lines. My actual recollection as the primary consideration, I can't recall, but it was certainly definitely around streamlining, relating to the restructure of the department, and also touching on your point about between meetings. There would be a delay for the casino to introduce anything if there was a slight error or a slight issue. Therefore, the casino may have been delayed by a further month by being able to implement a new game or a rule or a procedural change.
Yes, thank you. I think the only other thing I want to take the Commission to, and I have no numbers for most of the documents that I've had access to, unfortunately, because of the time. You were not, the minutes of the meeting you were just taken to in February 2021, in which a junket direction was finally given by the
Yes.
Commission, followed on from a meeting of the Commission, I think, on the 15th of December 2020, is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
You weren't present at that meeting?
No, I was not.
But you were aware of the
Yeah,
consideration by the Commission?
I became aware through the then Deputy Director General regulation.
The question of junket operators had been considered at the meeting of the 15th of December 2020. And it was in fact at that meeting that members of Crown had made a presentation in relation to junket operations.
Yes.
And to record from the minutes, I regret, Commissioners, I say I don't have the Bates numbers for these documents, but doubtless the Commission staff can provide this. The members discussed a response and the information provided by Crown representatives. While Crown has voluntarily suspended junket operations indefinitely, members agreed to direct that Crown do not recommence junket activities without their prior approval. That is, the prior approval of the Commission. And the direction, which was actually executed in February 2021, gave effect to the resolution of the Commission in December. That is, to put a pause on junket operations pending further consideration or revisiting the matter in the future.
Correct.
Thank you. I don't think I have any further questions at this time. Thank you, Commissioners.
Mr. Evans, while you're on your feet, you'll recall I posed or made a request of Ms. Seawood for the name of a person from the department who could assist us with the structure and activities of the problem gambling committee,
Yes.
support committee.
Not the trust.
Sorry,
the
the committee.
trust.
Yes.
Could I pose the same request to you, so it's for someone from the Commission who can assist us in that matter?
I will make inquiries. Thank you,
Thank
Commissioners.
you. Mr. Malone?
No questions, Commissioners.
Do you want to ask me?
And Mr. Beecroft, I've got a couple of questions. So Ms. Nelson asked you about your knowledge of Mr. Connolly's friendship with Mr. Murray. Could I ask you the same or similar questions about your knowledge of his friendship with John Nichols?
Yes.
Did you know that he had a friendship with him? That this is prior to the media publicity about it and perhaps talk within the department after that?
Mr. Nichols was previously an employee of the department. for many years. He moved on and worked for Racing and Wagering Western Australia, and then was a ministerial advisor to a number of ministers over the subsequent years. He also then, after retiring from being a ministerial advisor, took up a role at Crown. So Mr Connolly had a long-term working relationship knowledge of Mr Nichols.
Were you aware prior to that point in time I identified that they were friends outside of any work relationship?
No, I wasn't aware of a social friendship in that sense.
And can I ask you the same question in respect of Paul Hume? I think it's Hulme.
Yes, yeah. Yes, I was aware of the friendship with Mr Hume.
And how were you aware of that friendship?
Just again through general knowledge. Again, Mr Hume being a previous employee of the department, and Mr Hume, I think, was Mr Connolly's supervisor at one stage as well, and that friendship continued on through into Mr Hume's employment at Crown, and just through general knowledge and conversation with Mr Connolly.
About, and do I assume because you've said that you knew about the friendship that it was general conversation about activities they were engaging in outside of work
Yes.
together?
Yes.
As opposed to inside work?
Correct.
Can I clarify your evidence about the casino operations meetings? I'm probably calling them by the wrong name.
Yes.
But they were the meetings between the departmental
Yes.
officers and Crown
Yes.
officers. I just wasn't quite sure. Did you ever attend one of those meetings?
So these meetings were created many, many years ago, and there was a bit of a catch-all at first. So all the directors of, in that case, the department when we were Department of Racing, Gaming and Liquor, attended. I think I may have attended 2, 3 at the most, maybe, where I decided that these meetings are not for me. They're not any relevance to my field of work and being in strategic regulation director. So I removed myself from those meetings and haven't attended any since. However, since being appointed as Chief Casino Officer, I've had invitations to attend the meetings, but I haven't attended them.
Thank you. And there was one other area I wanted to ask you about, and that was in relation to your understanding of the role of the Chief Casino Officer. When you took on the role, and either before or after that, have you read the provision in the Casino Control Act which says that the Chief Casino Officer may institute prosecutions under the Act for offences under the Act?
Yes, I have seen that provision,
Right.
but I haven't explored it any further.
Right, so that was going to be my next question, because there is an offence under the Act of breaching a direction.
Yes.
But do I understand from what you're saying is that you have not considered what your role might be in either identifying alleged offences, or what investigations might have to be done to ascertain whether there's evidence to commence a prosecution or commencing one?
Yes, that's correct. I haven't fully read to get a complete understanding of the power there, nor have I actually gone further and looked at any need to be exercising that power at this stage.
So, for example, and I think on the basis of what you said, I know what your answer may be, but I just wanted to put to you the specific example. There's been the Bergen inquiry report. I don't know if you've read it or read the media about it, but do you agree that there's been, as a result of whatever you have read and heard, there's been allegations of suggestions of some I'll put it very mildly, suggestions of some possible criminal activity at the Perth casino?
Yes, involving junket operators and money laundering, but I don't think there's been any activity since COVID when the borders closed.
Right. So my question would be, is say, for example, as a result of what you might have heard or read, have you given any thought to whether you should read the report and make some investigations into whether there is anything that you should institute a prosecution for?
I haven't turned my mind to that yet, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Mr. Beecroft, I want to ask you about the what you described as the current acquisitions that are occurring for Crown. Early in your evidence, you were asked about that. You said you prepared a briefing note for the Gaming and Wagering Commission on that, I think.
To the Minister.
To the Minister?
Yeah, just as an update of what was happening
Can
with
I
one of those.
just ask you a bit about that? And because later in your evidence you talked of a multi-jurisdictional approach to the probity due diligence.
Yes.
It's common knowledge, at least from press reports, for what that is worth, that there's more than one suitor. Have you been asked, have you personally been asked about more than one due diligence exercise?
No, the only one is the main company, the first company that's been identified. In respect to the subsequent proposals that have been put to Crown, we have not been approached at all.
Thank you. Now, can you explain to me a little bit about the multi-jurisdictional approach that you mentioned? How, to your understanding, how will that operate? In other words, what role is Western Australia, the Gaming and Wagering Commission of Western Australia, playing in that multi-jurisdictional exercise, which is a due diligence exercise for the probity?
So my understanding at this point is that it's been agreed as the multi-jurisdictional. New South Wales is the lead. New South Wales has procured cause to assist in the probity. All three jurisdictions are currently going through a deed of, trying to think of the words, privacy, security for release of information. So that deed hasn't been finalised yet. Once that's finalised, we will have access to the information that New South Wales has already started to acquire. And it's likely, hasn't been confirmed, but it's likely that there is cause will also undertake aspects that are specific to Western Australia in relation to that probity. At this stage, it's a rudimentary understanding that I have, and we'll need to be working through that once I've completed.
Thank you. Now, can I ask you about paragraph 14 of your statement and the document that was prepared? We can bring it up if you like, but there's, I don't think it's necessary.
No, I have it.
Would you, if my reading of that document, would it be unfair if I were to categorise it as very much about the nuts and bolts of the job of the casino control officer?
Absolutely, I would agree with that.
You said that was really, you were given no particular instructions by Mr. Ord or anyone else about the way you should go about your task, and that you didn't seek advice from Mr. Connolly or anyone else about the role. What about the informing yourself about the underlying regulatory philosophy, the regulatory purpose or objects for which those nuts and bolts are designed? Did you give consideration to that, and if so, how?
I haven't at this stage, and I need to do that. And I think I may have indicated in my witness statement that the functions of the Chief Casino Officer haven't actually been a priority for me at this moment. But following the events of presenting to the Royal Commission and providing assistance to the department in assisting the Royal Commission, that will be a fundamental aspect of my role.
Thank you. And my last question to you relates to the February 2021 direction made by the Gaming and Wagering Commission to ban junkets, to use a colloquial phrase. I think I heard you. Did I hear you correctly to say that the addition of the terms premium player and privileged player came from a suggestion of the West Australian Police?
Yes, that's my understanding, recollection from the meeting, as a result of those particular activities involving international.
Right. Now, prior to that, were you aware of those terms, premium player and privileged player, as concepts?
I personally wasn't, no.
And this may be I'll put this on the record, someone will tell me. I noticed that in the direction, there is now a definition of those two terms, privileged player and premium player. I'm assuming that those definitions were inserted at the time when the February 2021 direction was made. Do you have any knowledge of that?
I can't categorically say yes
Right,
or
well,
no.
someone will enlighten me, no doubt,
Yes.
in due course. Thank you very much, Mr. Beecroft. And Ms Nelson, is there anything arising?
Nothing arising, thank you, Commissioners.
Ms Seward?
For very minor points, Mr. Beecroft could have back that flowchart GWC.002.0016.056 at page 354. And now if you could just look at the flowchart, you were asked some questions originally about the first, I guess, 3 boxes, the 2 green boxes, submission lodged, proposal assessed deficiencies, and then it goes back to Crown. At the time you wrote this paper, what role, if any, did you have in the actual substance of the activities that are depicted in those boxes?
At that point, none. It was actually undertaken by another area of the department. And this, as I alluded to before, was as a result of the incoming restructure of the department and the separation, I suppose, of some functions, and therefore the finalisation and preparing of the instruments to affect the approvals became the responsibility of my division.
In answer to many of your questions, you would explain the role of your team as being to facilitate
Yes.
outcomes. What do you mean by facilitate?
So, for example, if there's been the Commission, the Gaming and Wagering Commission has approved a new game, it will finalise the rules for approval and authorisation, have them gazetted. They will also make the necessary amendment to the operating procedures to reflect the new game, whatever changes are required. So, as I say, facilitates the end part to enable the change to come into operation.
And when in that answer you used the word they, what did you mean by they? When you said they will do this, this and this, is that your team?
My team, sorry. Yes, sorry.
No further questions?
Thank you, Ms Seward. Mr Beecroft, thank you. Oh, Mr Evans, you...
It's not in relation to Mr Beecroft's evidence as such, sir, but in relation to the question you just asked in relation to privileged and premium players, the answer is available. It's to be found in Schedule 9 of the Casino Burswood Island Agreement Act. The 8th Amendment deed inserted the definitions of those terms in creating the international table gaming rules and
But they were inserted into the directions in 2021, February 2021.
they may appear in the directions earlier, but certainly the origin of those terms appears to be in the Casino Agreement Act.
Thank you very much. Mr. Beecroft, on the understanding that that issue of the Problem Gambling Support Committee will be resolved in another way, can I, on behalf of the Commissioners, thank you very much for your evidence. It's been of great assistance to us, and you are released from the effect of the summons. Thank you very much. And we will adjourn now until 2 p.m.